Everybody, it's Dr. Rimka coming to you from my office on a gorgeous Saturday. I would say it's afternoon, but it might be an evening at this point because I've been having a lot of technical difficulties. So getting those letters to be straight for you was hard today. All right. So something I wanted to talk about for a while. It's a little bit of a confessional. Or just kind of explaining to lay people what clinicians go through. And it's also a talk to a lot of my colleagues. I think it's really important that doctors of chiropractic, acupuncturists, anybody on the holistic side, neurofeedback practitioners, a lot of neurofeedback practitioners don't necessarily know that much metabolics, and they're saying one or two basic things that they think is very common knowledge, and so it's no big deal. And actually, they're causing a lot more harm. So something that we go through, and it's, on the one hand, I feel kind of ashamed that it takes so long for me sometimes to change my mind on something. But on the other hand, it's actually really common in the field. It's, the cognitive dissonance of like saying, but this is the truth. This is what everybody's been doing. And I've seen all this stuff and all these lectures I go to. I pay all this money to go to all these conferences, and this is what they're all telling me to do. And then you find a few outliers who are saying, they're all wrong. And you have to sift through that stuff and like play around with it clinically and see what happens. So it's gone on with many things, like probably the biggest common one that's still technically controversial. Let's just say it's like cholesterol, the cholesterol myth and statin drugs, right? Still kind of common practice, but it's been refuted and well known for a really long time that cholesterol has nothing to do with causing cardiovascular disease, and giving a statin is a bad idea. And many physicians have written many books and many journals and are doing lots of lectures on the circuit trying to convince other physicians to stop doing it because the science has shown we were wrong. But once you start doing something, you think it's like, well, that's a fact. Everybody knows that, right? Once upon a time, it was complete fact that the earth was the center of the universe. Hello, you can see the sun go up and down around it. Basically, it rises over here and sets over there, so therefore it must be going in a circle around us. Obvious, right? So people were killed trying to say something different with science. So science isn't always quickly accepted, and it's not always quickly accepted even by clinicians. So we have a hard time sometimes. So it's taken me about 3 years to kind of sift through some information, which finding out it's taken this other doctor that I really respect 5 years to sift through it, makes me go, okay, well, I'm not doing so bad. So what is it? So it's kind of like a lot of some of the advice I'm telling some of you to do, I'm going to say, I was wrong, stop doing it. So that's what's going to happen right now. But it is part of what we have to do. It's like if we find out we've been giving you a supplement or medication or doing something that it turns out, oops, we made a mistake, we better tell you and stop you from doing it quickly. So the number one selling supplement in America right now, which means it's probably the number one used one. People are spending the most money on this, and I see it all the time. I see it megadosed. I have been taught to megadose it. I was starting to see clinically that wasn't working for me, like for my patients very much. I'm like, And you go to some seminar, and I'm talking megadosing sometimes, and I'm like, I don't see it clinically working. And it would work for a few, and some people would make worse, and you're like, wait a minute. So I had to kind of look at different things. So over the past few years, I've been experimenting and looking at different fields of study and trying to understand it. Number one selling supplement, what is it? Fish oil. Everybody, fish oil, omega-3s, cod liver oil, fermented cod liver oil, any kind of form you want to say, but omega-3s. EPA, DHA, which is a lot of substrate of the brain. And I specialize in brain stuff. So, of course, I've been telling people to take this. And there's been some, evidence that I should and different testing. So then I go through different things and find out maybe I shouldn't. So let me kind of explain some of the thinking, and I'm going to go through what some of the science is so you can start to make some decisions. But clinically, I have officially, I'm kind of coming out of the closet, and I've jumped the shark on this topic now after about 3 years of reading, researching, going to lectures, weighing these people against these people, reading some of the research myself. I tell you, actually, the research on this is so laborious. It's so complicated. I can't even get it half the time. I mean, it's the biophysics on this is crazy. It's very dry, horrible reading. So I'm going to tell you some of the stuff I'm, reading. So what we're going to do, and I think, in clinicians, you got to get on board. Again, I was just on one of my neurofeedback private messaging boards with only doctors, and a doctor I really respect asked a question about, again, super mega dosing omega-3 for one of his patients that had a traumatic brain injury, as if this was some standard protocol. I was like, and then people were rattling off all this stuff. I was like, dude, you might want to rethink that, because I don't give that to my traumatic brain injury people. It's causing more inflammation, and they don't know this, okay? So I knew it for some instances, but I didn't know how bad it was all around, and I'm going to show you some of the evidence. So the book, ultimately, that I've had for a while, that I finally have gotten kind of through and has convinced me, and a lot of times I have to do a lot of books on tape. I have to do YouTube lectures or webinars when I'm driving or on a plane, things like that. I can't read in a plane. It doesn't make me feel good. But it's this book, The PEO Solution. And I'm going to go over some of this. So chiropractors, neurofeedback people, if you're anybody who's giving any nutritional advice, just get the book, start reading it. It took me 3 years of a lot of stuff to change my mind on fish oil. Okay, I would go through periods of using it, not using it on my clients, but now I'm going to be done with it, okay? And so we're going to talk about it. And it's written by Brian Peskin and Robert Rowan. Very interesting, because you have basically an engineer who became a biomedical researcher, and that's all he's been studying is this one type of these essential fatty acids for about 18 years now. And then you also have Robert Rowan is a physician. So you have a researcher with not a doctor, not a physician, straight, you're basically looking at like the biophysics of, medical research, and he's an engineer and goes with like, we need to be precise. And then you have a physician who's practicing, and this is the one, Robert Rowan. I'm a fan of his, and he's a leading physician in oxidation therapies and using oxygen, which you guys have seen me do videos on ozone therapy, MAH-UBI, using ozone and light to add oxygen to the blood, prolozone, which is ozone injections into joints. So he does all of that. He trains a lot of physicians in it. It's kind of why I fell into more of this, a few years ago, like, what's he talking about? He's a co-author. So you have these two very different people coming at it very different angles. Again, clinicians, we are not researchers. We do not want to kind of do the stuff Brian Peskin is doing. It's like, ugh, to us. We want to take care of people, I have no interest in collecting data to the point that I'm going to publish it. It's not fun to me. Or Dr. Rowan, but he's trying to do it because we want to get these things out to people. So this book is written for physicians, for doctors, but it's easy enough, you guys, that the majority of lay people, I think, can get into it and understand it. If you're really like, I don't know, then read it. Don't argue without data. Like, I was like, oh, really? Let me look at this. And the reason I was open to this book was because I already knew from many other forms of training that I specialize in, absolutely omega-3s are pro-inflammatory in the brain for certain conditions. And I already knew that, so I knew they could be very harmful. And I was using an omega-6, even primrose oil on a lot of them, and flax oil on certain brain inflammatory disorders that were causing a lot of psychiatric illness symptoms in patients. And so that's the work of Abram Hoffer. So Abram Hoffer was a psychiatrist from Canada, and he, he's one of my huge heroes. I am a massive fan. I have watched and read everything I can possibly get my hands on. He is no longer with us. His work has continued on. So this is a great book, Natural Healing of Schizophrenia, A Natural Healing of Bipolar Disorder. And there's a bunch of other ones. It's actually written by somebody he trained who kind of took all the work together, and he wrote the forewords for these. But just to give you an idea, there's a lot of other options out there. But it was from the orthomolecular psychiatry. That is the word that's used for a functional type of psychiatry that's really, really effective. That was started by Dr. Hoffer, a psychiatrist out of Canada, and Carl Pfeiffer. And they were both physicians, and they specialized in looking at the body, and particularly obviously the brain, because they're looking at mental illness, and they specialize in bipolar, schizophrenia, anxiety, depression, and some of these things that were supposedly the schizophrenia that's supposed to be incurable. And, you know, Hoffer will tell you he cured hundreds, if not thousands, of schizophrenics left and right. And you can do this if you know what you're doing. So in many of these brain inflammatory disorders, the omega-3 was very well known. And with people who study orthomolecular psychiatry, we don't give it. Like absolutely no omega-3 that's going to make it worse. We need to go with evening primrose oil. We need to go with omega-6 because we're of what side of the omega-6 or omega-3 chain of acids that we're trying to affect, and we needed to get, pump up the omega-6 to bring down the inflammation and help with the neurotransmitter production. So what the hell am I actually talking about? What did I just say? I said there was many other schools of physicians, functional physicians that have been saying, watch the omega-6, be careful in these conditions. It's still good, we still like it. Now you have a whole nother slew of them, kind of led by Brian Peskin, saying, let me tell you about, fish oil. It's a toxic poison to everybody. And you're like, whoa. He's really harsh with it, like really harsh. So if you want to do some YouTubes on Peskin, he don't play. This is all he's done for 18 years, I think. 18, 19, this is all he researches, all he studies. This is all he lectures about. So it's all he knows, right? So he would know more about it than everybody. And again, Robert Rowan is a physician, practicing clinician, and it took Peskin 5 years to convince him about it. So I'm going to talk about this book, and basically the topic is, hope you guys can see that. I can give a shadow. Oh, it's me. Fish oil. So is it a friend? Is it a foe? Or is it just worthless? And again, this is going to really kind of break up a lot of people's thinking because it's the #1 selling supplement in America. It's over here. I sell it. I have people on it. And then I have people off of it. I'll go through, stop taking this for 6 months. We're going to do nothing. Let's see what happens. I'm going to have evening primrose oil. Let's see what happens. We're going to play with this and play with that. Just test the biochemistry. Did this work? Did that work? I cannot tell you over the number of years how many parents I've had come in. I mean, every single one will basically say, we tried all the fish oil. We tried all that. It did nothing for the ADHD. I'm always like, why didn't it work? I mean, because it says it's supposed to work and da-da-da. And I've actually never seen it work. So I have to say, it doesn't actually work. Just like actually people giving 5-tetrahydromethylfolate to everybody who has an MTHFR mutation, it makes a lot of those people really worse. And if you don't figure out why, that's a problem. You can't just give it to everybody and say, well, but the literature says that's what it's supposed to do. Yeah. It's not true. And if you keep seeing it, I'm like, well, it just made that depressed person a whole lot more depressed. So I'm going to have them stop taking it. Oh, look, the depression lifted. You can't deny that clinically. So you have to just, like, what it says right here is like, okay, something's maybe off with what, is it clinically working that way? What does the science totally say? Theoretical science and clinical science merged together is what these two did in that book. And it's very good. Okay, so PEO means parent essential oil. It's a term that was made by Peskin because people have been using the wrong terms. And I have been too. I was trained incorrectly. It was bad data, wrong information. I didn't feel happy that I've been saying the wrong thing, but now I know it's the wrong thing. I want to no longer say it because it sounds stupid. Okay, so essential fatty acids, what that is. So what are the true essential fatty acids? Everybody's saying DHA and EPA are essential fatty acids. When something's essential, it means you have to eat it. It means your body cannot make it. Big example of something like that's not, cholesterol. Cholesterol is not essential. You never have to consume it because your body makes it. It's actually the #1 substance. Your body makes more of that than anything else. So it gives you an idea, like, cholesterol must be really important if the body puts that much priority on making it. Like, so this, just side note on this whole low cholesterol business, it's ridiculous. Again, the wisdom of the body says, cholesterol's so important, I'm going to make sure I can make it, and I make it so efficiently, I make more of it than anything else. So if you make more of that than anything else, it must be really darn important. But we'll Cholesterol is another story, but it's actually kind of related. Okay, so make sure you guys can see this. So in the essential fatty acids, we've been saying the wrong things are essential. There's not. There's only 2 that are actually essential. And this is why there's been like this confusion as to why sometimes my vegetarians and vegans can have decent omega-3 levels, and why some other people have horrible, like the ones that are taking all the pills. Like, what's going on? Because actually what I've been taught, a lot of us have been taught, it's totally wrong. Okay, so there's one essential omega-6 and there's one essential omega-3. You have to get them from the diet. And neither one of them actually comes from an animal. They are plant-based, okay? So all the vegetarians can rejoice. I'm not a vegetarian anymore. Was for 14 years, very long time. And I'm going to tell you, it's really interesting, this book, The PEO Solution, for all you guys. It's a really great merging of science showing everybody can stop the food wars and the diet wars, because it just isn't what's important. I have to go through that with people. I'm like, food is not the end all be all. It does not all begin with food. That's a lie. Okay? It's just a lie. It's not the most important thing actually happening with you. There are some bad things you need to be aware of, and some good choices you can make, some bad choices you can make. But that is not the most important thing, actually. So Peskin is a huge carnivore, major big meat eater, kind of eats like I do now, more paleo, keto-esque, lots of protein. And Dr. Rowan is a vegan, almost raw foodist, not 100%. He'll do some dairy. I think he might do occasionally eggs, but very rarely. Mostly he's, mostly raw and mostly vegan. I think, again, a little bit of dairy, but he's not trying strict, but that's, and their numbers and their health parameters are the same, okay? And they get along really great, and neither one is trying to convert the other, because they know it actually doesn't matter as long as you have a few key things in place. And their position is, it's this, okay? Read the book, you can make your own decision. So, of this, there's only 2 that matter, LA and ALA. And the big thing that everybody, omega-6 are the ones that keep getting demonized. And, omega-6, if you Google omega-6 oils, the first thing that's going to come up all over the page is how inflammatory they are, how many diseases they cause, and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Not exactly true, but we'll get to that. So you have the LA and the ALA, right? These are the ones that are really actually essential. Most of you are not taking a supplement that's ALA or LA. I do. Been for a while, but I really just put it all together, how critical this is and how I should have been having everybody do it this way, okay? So what happens is you get these, and he calls them parent essential oils. So you have, these are your parents, and so the parents need to make the babies. And so the babies are derivatives. The children are called derivatives. They're not essential. You don't need them. And so on the omega-3 side, what's some of the derivatives of ALA, of alpha-linoleic acid? DHA and EPA. So that's where you get your DHA and EPA. You don't actually have to consume DHA or EPA at all. Your body's going to make it. Okay? And on the omega-6 side, the linoleic acid gets converted into some other things. It's GLA and arachidonic acid and like dehydroxyexyls, I can't even say any of these things, but GGLA, all this stuff. Arachidonic acid is one that gets a really bad name too, but all of these things have a place, and if you have that too low, it's not good, and sometimes it needs to be high to actually spur something along in another pathway. So omega-6 and omega-3, and here's the big thing too that's the people don't want to hear. The omega-6 side is actually way more important than the omega-3. Omega-3 gets kind of burned up really quickly, and the omega-6, we use this a lot more. On average, in the body tissue, actually I think I have this on the next page, there's a huge difference of how much omega-6 we actually need in our body compared to omega-3. Let me just go to the next page. Okay, there I had it. So, how much omega-6 to omega-3 ratio do we need? In the body tissue, on average, we use, it's 11 to 1. way more omega-6 than omega-3. And so again, everyone's super loading up on omega-3 like crazy. They're not super loading up on omega-6 because you keep hearing how bad it is for you. So the linoleic acid, you need lots more of this omega-6 than you do of this. So when we take a supplement, we want things in the right ratios. So this is on average in the body tissue. Some places it's 3-to-1, some places it's 20-to-1. The brain is different than the muscles. I don't have every single one of those numbers in my head, but to give you an idea, omega-6 is actually way more important. That oil, that parent oil, that LA and the derivatives it makes has a much bigger role in the body than this. Okay? But everybody's taking all the derivatives of this like crazy and being told it's essential, and it's not. You don't actually have to take that because you make it. Okay? But everybody says, but I heard omega-6 oils were bad, right? As I said, oh, you Google it, you're gonna see tons of it. The problem with omega-6, processed omega-6 oils are bad. And because we process our food, we've created a nightmare for ourselves and our health because we have food processing. So if you were just eating food all the time and not going to grocery stores, right? If that's not how you got food, if you got it out wild in nature the way everybody used to, there's no issue. Omega-6, actually, the foods you would eat, you would have tremendous amounts of omega-6 compared to omega-3, and you'd be fine. And so it gives you an idea, like omega-3s are lower in most things in nature, and the big things that get touted, and I promote eating seafood, but so let's say marine food. There are whole regions of this world that will never encounter that much seafood, okay? But they're not deficient in DHA or EPA at all. Their brains don't have less of it. Their nervous tissue's fine. Otherwise, they would have a host of neurological disorders, mental disorders, all these things. And they don't. They're totally fine because the body is incredibly efficient at making it. And actually, you don't need that much of it. This is what stunned me, okay? What we were taught is that of the ALA, the omega-3, almost 100% of it is made into DHA EPA. Turns out that's completely wrong science. They just actually made it up. There was no real thing. So now with better science and technology that we have today, we know actually of the omega-3, that parent, that whenever you eat that, only 1% of it ever is converted into EPA DHA. You don't need that much of it. It's roughly 5 to 6 milligrams a day your body will make of DHA EPA. So I know people who are taking, like thousands of stuff, like so many grams. It's crazy. Like, whoa, the body needs very little, and it actually has systems set up to make very, very little because it's not as important as we've been led to believe. If you give it what it needs here, the body knows what to do. It doesn't need us interfering. It'll do all its processes itself. Okay? So the adulterated processed omega-6 are the problems. And we used to think it was just trans fats, but it's all of it. Soybean oil, canola oil, your processed grapeseed oil, processed sunflower, all the cooking oils in a grocery store, all the cooking oils in every restaurant are processed, adulterated omega-6. And what does that mean, processed, adulterated? What it means ultimately is that oil is no longer able to carry oxygen. Okay, we're going to start with that. It can't uptake, carry, and deliver oxygen anymore. It's hard, stiff, unable to capture it, more like plastic. Okay? Rancid, that's another word. And it causes rancidity. What does that mean in the body? Some people don't understand that. It's like rust. It's rust on metal. That starts happening in your body. Everybody knows rusting isn't good. It degrades and destroys stuff. It happens inside from rancid things. So it's the processed omega-6 that's your really big problem because it stops the transfer of oxygen inside the cell. So here we have a blood vessel, right? And we have cells that float around, the red blood cells, and they're carrying the oxygen, the O2, right? So that's what O2 is. So oxygen is here. We got to get the oxygen from the blood and get it into the tissue, one, and then we have to get it from the tissue, like inside each cell, okay? That's critical. Processed omega-6, stop that. They can't carry and transfer oxygen at all. unprocessed omega-6, that's its brilliance. That's what it's designed to do. But by processing it, we destroy its ability to do what it needs to do. So why is oxygen important? Number 1 and 2 causes of death in the U.S. Anybody know? Anybody? Cancer and heart disease. Okay? Number 1 and 1 and 2, I think they flip. I think it's heart disease is number 1 right now. So cancer and heart disease, number 1 and 2 causes of death, right? Both are actually related to the same thing, which deals with can't get oxygen to what needs to happen, right? I'm just going to say can't get oxygen into the cell. And have this there as a reminder. So what was discovered, Otto Warburg, Nobel Prize winner, one of the greatest functional physiologists ever, the real cause of cancer is that there is reduction in oxygen uptake by a cell. And all it actually takes, which is a shocking number, it's not a lot, it's intermittent, doesn't have to be constant, it can be just as long as this is happening kind of consistently, intermittently, a reduction of only 35% of your oxygen. So 1/3. So we have a 1/3 oxygen reduction available inside your cell, and those cells always become cancerous. And so the cancer rates right now in America, 73% of men will get cancer, and I think it's 70, maybe 70% men, 53% women. Either way, 70%, 50%. That's outrageous. That's super common, okay? And we know heart disease is, I think it's the number 1. We're getting a lot of that. So what's this all about? Heart disease is coming from the thickening of the blood vessels are getting they're getting hard, they're inflexible, they're hard like plastic. I use that word. This adulterated omega-6 causes this rigidity and plasticity of the cell structure, of the linings of blood vessels, and it's not allowing things to be flexible anymore, and it's reducing the oxygen uptake of all the cells. And so everybody's starving of oxygen. I've spoken about oxygenation and how that is the gold currency in the body to do everything. You can only live a couple minutes without air. You can go weeks. I don't have to eat for 40, 50 days. I'm fine. I don't have to have water 8, 9, 10 days. I'll be fine. Air? Oxygen? I got a few minutes. That's it. It's that important, okay? All right, so ultimately it comes down to what's the deal? Why does this matter? So these parent essential oils, this especially omega-6, that really, really matters. It comes down to this. So that's a cell, and there's 2 layers on the cell wall. It's called a phospholipid bilayer membrane. Bilayer. 2 layers, phospholipid, it's lipid fat, okay? We won't draw the little heads and tails, but if anybody remembers that from biology, that's what's going on here. So here we have a cell membrane, okay? Cell structure is all about those parent essential oils, just those 2 that are coming from nuts and seeds, actually. The structure of your cell is 50% fat and 50% protein. Okay, and of the fat it's 25 to 33% of this fat of this is the parent essential oil. Okay, mostly the omega-6. So this is what it does. So if we have oxygen sitting out here, we want to get it inside here because it's not doing anything out here. So the parent essential oil, that's not DHA or EPA. There is no DHA, EPA in here, okay? There's most cells, it's virtually nothing, okay, inside a cell, structural of the cell. This is the physical structure, right? You're made of these parent essential oils and a lot of cholesterol and a lot of saturated fat. If we didn't have that, we would collapse, everybody thinks just the skeleton's holding us up. That's this hard framework. Cholesterol and the LA is what's holding everything else together, okay? So parent essential oils can take that and drop it off. They have a high affinity to one, grab it and let it go. That's what they're designed to do. They create oxygen transport getting in and out of, getting into that cell. Period. So if you have, instead of the healthy parent essential oil, you've got canola oil, nothing. You've got soybean oil, nothing. You've got, what is it, canola oil, nothing. It's not going to work, right? So it's like, how many of us are taking the healthy, good oils, so our membranes of this? So, and again, every time you eat out in a restaurant, every baked good, everything you eat is full of rancid omega-6 oils because they have to process it to get rid of the smell and stuff like that. So they have to stabilize it so it's been completely denatured and it's become rancid, right? So again, what does that do with fish oil? I'm getting there because again, there is no fish oil in any of this membrane structure, okay? It's this. And you're not getting enough of this good clean version, you're getting all the unhealthy version. So eventually, if your cell looks like, you know, you only got a few healthy locations and you have all these bad ones that are blocking oxygen, that's how you end up with your 35% or more reduction. You know, you are making your structure of your cells. The ultimate thing within a cell, the brain of a cell, is its membrane. The nonsense of the DNA being the brain is complete BS, and I please tell your children stop saying that. Please, 3rd grade teachers, 5th grade teachers, 8th grade teachers, stop telling that ridiculous, outdated lie. The nucleus is not the brain of the cell by any means. It really would probably be the membrane at this point. It's directing everything. As is the health of this membrane, how fluid it is, how it can uptake the oxygen, and how it can get things in and out, not inflamed, will determine your health. Every cell being healthy, you have a healthy body. Every cell getting unhealthy, you have an unhealthy body. You will have disease. So, and if like 50% of your diet is processed crap, 50% of the cell membrane is going to be processed crap. And it's going to, there's your 50% reduction in oxygen. What do you think the likelihood of you getting cancer is? Probably pretty darn high. That's why it's 70-some% and 50-some% right now. Okay? So, what you really need to start getting into your diet so your cells can put the good stuff in is the parent essential oil. The LA and the ALA. Again, with the LA kind of being more important. But in a supplement form, we do look for a ratio. It seems clinically what's best is a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1 to 2.5. And you typically, it's a blend of different oils. You know, the supplements will have flax, walnut, sunflower, a little coconut oil, a little GLA, some of the things that kind of keep it safe and not go rancid. You actually don't need DHA and EPA. This was freaking mind-blowing to me. Again, I fought it for 3 years. I've been fighting it. But the patients I have off of it, off the oil, and I have on eating primrose, and I've just been sticking with primrose and flax as my omega-6, they get better. And I've done it on my own son. I've been playing like, oh, this, I don't know. Let me look at it again. Let me read more. Let me really try. And like, now I'm like, I have to change. And it's scary because it's hard to break your paradigm of what everybody else, what you've been taught and what everybody else is doing, and to continue to be another salmon, another way you have to be like, oh man. And again, other doctors they're ahead of me on this, absolutely. But again, with majority of my friends, like, they don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, you guys, you need to stop doing what you're doing. And if you know, I get it'll take some time, but it's wrong. So for myself, my friends that I care about and I love, and my patients, we need to rethink what we're doing. I do have a few people still on because there are some genetic couple odd variants that may need it, and Peskin would totally disagree with me, but I'm not there yet that I'm not going to use it ever. But the majority of, so if you've been getting it from me recently, email me, call me, and we're going to change some things up for you because I finally had a aha moment and I can't do it anymore. Okay? So again, food processing of the omega-6 is the issue, because then your cells can't hold on to oxygen, okay? You decrease the oxygen, the membrane gets ruined, right? So it's, again, all about healing the membrane. I go over this with my patients all the time. It's all about, we have to fix the cell to get well, and it really comes down to the membranes. It's the outside membrane, and it's the nuclear membrane that matters, and it's the mitochondrial two membranes that matter. But right now I'm just going to kind of talk about this, but it's the structure of all of those things. All right. I think that's all I have there. So, there's a few supplements that I think are good that I'm recommending. I take systemic formulas. There's also Yes supplements, and you just look for the, that really is the essential fatty acids. So the fish oil stuff is not, it's shocking, but and what basically is the deal is like it's all rancid. Okay, kind of like I didn't really know, and now I've understood the processing of the fish oil. To give you an idea, for one capsule, one of those tiny capsules of the fish oil, it takes, for pharmaceutical grade, which is the kind of stuff I recommend, the kind of stuff we're saying, it takes about 17 pounds of fish to make one capsule. Can you believe that? 17 pounds. Not 17 pounds to make one pill. That in and of itself just seems like an absolute, it's so wasteful. I was kind of blown away at the waste, the environmental impact of that. Like, really? Can't you just eat a piece of fish every now and then, So yeah, if you like fish, eat it. I think there's a lot of benefits to eating fish and oysters and all the kind of things. It's amazing stuff, especially my undermethylating people who need a lot of methionine. We have to, I have to work with them on this. But it's kind of mind-blowing. And how they do it, they have to like juice it, like, because there's not an oil gland on a fish actually. They grind it up and juice it, and it's so rancid. It's one of the most highly processed food supplements on the market. I had no idea. So, and again, even if it's not that processed, what actually happens in the body biochemically turns it just oxidizes instantly. This is why they're throwing in astaxanthin, some other antioxidants, and all stuff. And so that's the kind of supplements I've been saying, well, we want to protect it and make sure the oil's good and it doesn't oxidize. And I've been thinking getting the highest grade, cold pressed, blah, 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 doesn't actually matter. As soon as you put it in your body, at your body temperature, it completely goes rancid, and it causes a lot of inflammation. So this book points out, so much research and so much studies on showing it, it's actually making diabetes worse. It's actually causing inflammation of the arterial walls, increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease. It's actually not having, it's also the parent essential oils for folks. It actually decreases your appetite. And we're not getting enough of it. That's why you're hungrier, and hungrier people are, getting more obese. So that was kind of interesting. There's a lot of benefits to taking it. You don't need a lot. Typically, like a 150, 160 pound person is only going to take 3 grams of this. So it's like a teaspoon of an oil, but you can also get it in capsule forms. Like, again, I use systemic formulas. It's a couple Vista products it's called, and we sell those in the office, and Yes supplements. And well, I'm out of stock, but we're getting those in the office too. But those are the ones. Again, please be careful on ordering your supplements like on an Amazon or something like that. There is so much counterfeit going on, you guys. It's frightening. There's some states that are in class action lawsuits with Target and GNC and other places because what they're selling isn't what they say they're selling. There's just counterfeit supplements is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Just whole containers are coming over here that are nothing that, I don't know if these companies have any idea that they're selling counterfeit stuff. So we only use stuff that's coming from, doctor, physician-based website. I have a website, Wellevate, that we sign people up, and it's potency guaranteed, counterfeit, guaranteed. There's a lot of controls that go into place on these products to make sure they're pharmaceutical grade and the real thing. They're not coming from back channels to make them cheaper so you can get some crazy price. Because if you're buying ubiquinol version of CoQ10, it costs you $25. I guarantee you that is not ubiquinol. It's not going to happen. Okay, it's vitamin E, and it's going to be a toxic, rancid vitamin E that's making you worse. So be careful. Get things from a trusted source. It's well worth it. But yeah, it turns out, looks like the fish oils are making us a lot worse. as far as I'm concerned, you know, I'm convinced, and I'm still hesitant, you know, like the sign, I'm like, I'm convinced, but man, I hate saying it publicly, because it's like, it's weird to say it, that I'm not going to be recommending that anymore. And I want most of my patients to get off of it, and I'm going to switch them over to this, because the ones that I already have been doing, they've been getting better, faster, and getting better results. So, and I've only been using one. When you really wanted a supplement that's going to be using multiple oils, 4 or 5 different oils, and they're going to have the coconut oil in it to stabilize it. They're going to have the GLA in there to protect it. So it needs to be a quality supplement, not somebody who's guessing and never been doing this for a while. So there's that, you guys. Check out the book. Check out Dr. Peskin, Dr. Rowan. And I know it's kind of mind-blowing. I literally just had a friend, a doctor up in New York, text me about this morning, I think, or something. And I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm about to do Facebook Live on it. And he's like, I can't watch it. I'm like, because he was like, oh, so-and-so's been saying this. Is he full of BS? I'm like, no, I've actually been doing it for a while. So, but there are other schools. The Orthomolecular Psychiatry has been looking at this. So the Hoffer Walsh Institute do know and teach their doctors, hey, omega-6 can make some people a lot worse because it's pro-inflammatory in certain conditions. So they know that. A high dose omega-3, actually it has a steroid effect. So it's, which isn't good. You don't want to be taking steroids unnecessarily. Like, that's not a good thing to do for your body. So that's it, guys. Kind of bizarre, right? I know it's a little bit mind-blowing, because like, what? I was giving cod liver oil as a kid all the time. Like, this is what we've been doing. But the research has been clear. It doesn't do anything for cardiovascular disease. It doesn't do anything to help, actually. And there's all this evidence to say it's actually making it worse. And something that Robert Peskin says, which I found really fascinating, because he is a researcher. This is what all he's done, is he's a professional researcher. There's over 15,000 studies on omega-3, on fish oil. And he goes, actually, if it was helpful, no one would need to do 15,000 studies. When you know something that you know something, you'd only do a few studies on it, and you just have a hypothesis, you confirm it a couple times, it's duplicated, it's done. He's like, nobody does 15,000 studies on gravity. It's done. He goes, but the fact that they keep having to do study after study after study, because they're trying to constantly prove it's helpful, because study after study shows it's not. So he goes through some of that, pretty interesting. Maria, I take systemic formulas. That's what I take. It's the product I sell. We get it separately. We can use Vista 2 and 1. That's the product I use and recommend. It is a part of my whole True Cellular Detox protocol, where I'm repairing. We're going through a really big system with 5 big components, where we're restoring everything about the cell. We're going after the membrane, we're going after methylation, we're going after the mitochondria, we're removing source of toxins. It's very comprehensive, but it's all incorporated in that, and it's part of why that protocol is so powerful, because there are no fish oils used whatsoever. So, but systemic formulas is what I use, have in the office. But yes, supplement is also a great brand. So again, I'm not going to not tell you about other things, just whatever. But yeah, systemic and True Cellular Detox is what I use, is what I take personally. So my multi that I take is Cellular Vitality. It's a nice, covers everybody's one little packet, a few little things a day. It's all you got to take for that. Just sent shipment off to my mom of it. So I take it, give it to my mom. Maria, you can get it from me in my office, or you can, there'll be some websites. I know Pampa sells it online. Most systemic stuff is going to be in doctors' offices, but there are a few physicians and docs who are set up kind of fancy and have their online stores. I'm not one of them yet, but I just throw money out the window, you guys. It's just, I'm not there yet. I need somebody to come and manage all that stuff for me. But so if you just Google that, systemic formulas, Vista 1 and 2. But if you wanted to do the True Cellular Detox, I can be your gal and can ship everything to you. We can do it all virtual, or you can come in if you're in Atlanta. Okay? See you guys. I think that's about it.